imperial Austrian Habsburg dynasty, Grand Duke since his father Pietro Leopoldo, was recalled to Vienna to become Holy Roman Emperor in 1791. After the French Revolution, the European kings were afraid of the prevailing spirit of anti-monarchism in their countries that spread rapidly from the newly born Republic of France. Some states, including Tuscany, supported armed neutrality, while Austria and England called to arms. The conflict is inevitable, and in 1792 France declares war on the Austro-Hungarian Emperor, a war destined to spread down into Italy. The Directoire in Paris puts the young general Napoleon Bonaparte, already covered in glory after beating the British out of Toulon, in charge of the Italian theatre, with orders to halt the Austrian advance. In a remarkable reversal, Bonaparte destroys the Piedmontese army and forces them out of the war. He then turned on the Austrians and forced them to entirely evacuate Hungary. Here is how you need to behave with respect to Livorno and Tuscany. You need to march your troops there by a secondary route and arrive when they least expect it. The Republic is not at war with the Grand Duke, and it is best to keep on his good side. His minister in Paris did not conceal his disgust of the British hold on Tuscany, and the tyranny they have shown in the port of Livorno, which the British call black. It is worthy of the Republic to remove this British yoke from the Grand Duke of Tuscany. Have the French troops arrive in Livorno in the good order which is indispensable for neutral countries. Explain to the Grand Duke you all need to pass through his territory, and to garrison your troops in Livorno. Send a courier to this effect, and make sure that the courier arrives in Florence at the same time or shortly before the French troops enter Livorno. Declare that Prince, Citizen General, in the name of the Executive Directory, that it is necessary by immediate orders that whatsoever is owned by the enemies of the Republic in his state is to be given to us. Otherwise, the French Republic will be forced to treat Tuscany as if it were an ally of England and Austria. Your Royal Highness, the 8th of Macedon, year 4 of the Republic one and indivisible. The government of the French Republic is constantly insulted in the port of Livorno. The property of French merchants has been violated. The Executive Directory has repeatedly complained to Your Royal Highness's minister in Paris, who was forced to confess Your Royal Highness's iniquities in regard to pressing these acts and maintaining the neutrality of the port of Livorno. As a result, the Executive Directory has ordered me to march a division of the army that I command to take possession of Livorno. I have the honor of announcing to Your Royal Highness that on the 1st of the month, a division of my army will enter Livorno. It will behave according to the principles of neutrality that we are here to maintain. I have also been asked to assure Your Royal Highness of the wish of the French government to see the friendship that exists between our two states continue. I am, with esteem and consideration of Your Royal Highness, Your humble Bonaparte. This letter was answered that very evening, in the hope of delaying the entry of the French into Tuscany. But it was useless. General Napoleon had in fact just learned that a powerful English fleet was crossing the Tyrrhenian Sea, ready to land a body of 60,000 men destined to reinforce the Pope's army. Taking possession of Livorno was essential. On the evening of the same day, the general made his entry into Livorno and took the port, roughly treating the tenaciously anti-French governor of the port. Less than a day later, Napoleon leaves his garrison in Livorno and rushed down on the road to Florence, stopping on the way to visit his distant relative Canon Filippo Bonaparte in San Miniato and showering the bewildered old priest with honors. Thursday, the 30th of June, the Grand Duke receives the news that the commander of the army of the Italian campaign, General Bonaparte, will arrive the same day in Florence. Ferdinand III is 27 years old, and the last 4 days have been the most difficult of his reign. He welcomes the news with nearly disguised unhappiness and some resignation, while assuring the French minister that all is well. He prepares a guard of honor to welcome Napoleon at the gates of the city. Many people, after lunch, made their way to the San Frediano gate, where the road from Livorno entered the city. And at 7 p.m., they had the pleasure of seeing the hero who, in a short space of time, had earned the laurel of multiple victories and conquests. Housed in the Ximenes Palace, home to André François Millot, ambassador of the French Republic to the Tuscany court, Napoleon attends a concert at the nearby Pergola Theatre, followed by an evening of revels and some not inconsiderable feasting at the palace. Friday, 1st of July. The following morning, carriages arrive to escort Napoleon and the senior members of his general staff to Palazzo, where he will have the honor of being received by the Grand Duke and invited to lunch with members of the court. The Grand Duchess, Luisa Maria Amalia of Bourbon, complaining of a headache, refuses to meet the general and returns to her apartments, leaving her ladies in waiting to act as her eyes and ears. Finally, the two great men meet. On one side, the stifled etiquette of the 18th century endures, and on the other, a certain military stiffness, probably because this is the first time that Napoleon, by nature relaxed and dignified, is to be received by a sovereign, the personification of the doctrines he fights against. In the name of the revolutionary ideal, the sovereign and the general are the same age. No official document enlightens us on the words that were exchanged, nor their impressions of one another, but mutual respect was certainly felt. We know that General Bonaparte was received in a frank, casual, and kindly way. The Grand Duke is a wavering spirit that on the one hand wants the common good, and at the same time wrecks and reverses the reforms set up by his father for the good of his subjects according to the modern enlightenment conceptions. The atmosphere at the lunch table isn't very cheerful, and even less so when a dispatch arrives with news of the surrender of the citadel of Milan to the French forces, news of another great victory that brings a rush of pleasure to the general. With the citadel no longer needing to be blockaded, he can proceed to invest Mantua. After a quick visit to the La Specole wax collection, a walk around the Bovoli Gardens, and a private goodbye to the Grand Duke, Napoleon traversed the art by the Vasari corridor to see the art collection in the Uffizi, guided by the gallery director Abbot Puccini. He won't stay for the grand ball being prepared in his honor that evening, war being closer to his heart than dancing. At 5 p.m., Bonaparte leaves Florence for Bologna, and for the Grand Duke and his court, everything seems to return to normal, but only for a short time. The French storm is about to unleash itself onto Tuscany. In his report to the director back to Paris, Napoleon summarizes his impression of his brief visit to Florence in a few sharp lines. In Florence, I have seen the famous Medici villas missing from our museum, and a collection of wax anatomy which wouldn't be bad to have.